And getting back to my video series plan of rereading Black Clover and Fairy Tale from start all the way to current, and trying to give my thoughts in terms of like how I was when I first read it, and then how I obviously can read it now, and some of the content within it, and how I think it largely affects the series and what it really means for like the series as a whole when you get like much further in. So the first one, like this is two chapters. The first video I know I did for the let's go re-going through Black Clover and Fairy Tale chapters one for each of them was much longer, but that's because it was chapter one. They're always thick, and you got a lot to talk about when it comes to like displaying the series for the first time and whatnot. So these ones like are actually going to be relatively quick. I'll try and keep each of them at like less than 10 minutes. But so this is going to be for chapters 2 and 3 because for both of them, it's essentially when they joined their group. Lucy joined the Fairy Tale Guild and Asta joined the Black Bulls squad. That just meeting the characters for the first time and then having that first having that first little taste of being part of this group. Obviously, Natsu was part of the group for years before that, but the fact that you get both of them, both series has a portion in that at the start of just, hey, welcome to the crew. This is what they're like, and just seeing all that kind of displayed out. And I'm gonna try and do slideshows for like a chapter each, like one for each chapter as I'm going. But obviously these ones are only gonna be a couple, so I figured I would just do my favorite ones for each of them. Since the Fairy Tale one is 2 chapters and the Black Clover one I think it's like 3 or 4 chapters. But anyway, so at the start of this one, you mostly get character portions. I mean, when you think about like the events of the first 2 chapters, or sorry, the first 3 chapters, like obviously you get the first one, very important, always chapter one. But chapters 2 and 3, it's not like a big deal in obviously the grand scheme of things, like stuff with the Vulcan. I think the important, like more content wise, like piece of these 2 chapters for Fairy Tale is more about the characters. I mean, I don't think anybody looks back and like, oh, the Vulcan, man, Mount Hakobe. That's not something that I think a lot of people were like, oh, the memorable portion. It's stuff um, finding out about like Natsu and Igneel, the whole portion where Natsu goes out to try and help, bring back Mako for, bring his dad in, and especially when you think later, knowing Natsu like he was pretty much like he didn't know if Igneo was alive or dead for years. The fact that really, once you get like read back at parts like this, you can tell there's a lot of personal like reasons that he would like take a lot of like take a lot of interest in going to help Mako. Like he could understand, this little boy not sure what happened to his dad, upset and just kind of freaking out, and really wanting to figure out what happened. So probably reminded him back when Igneel disappeared and he didn't really know what to do, and he was a freaking out like upset child who just all of a sudden his dad was nowhere to be found. And he didn't find him murdered. He didn't say I'm gonna be back. It was just gone with no word. And obviously Mako is a little different because he went on a mission, and it was Romeo kind of like instigating. He kind of wanted like put it up there because he wanted his dad to do something impressive, and I think he kind of blamed himself a little bit different in that situation. But you know what I mean. You still have Natsu probably saw himself in Romeo at the time, but like the first portions, you get like Lucy joining the guild. You're seeing how rowdy the guild is, and also Natsu not really seeming to care a lot about Lucy at the start. I mean, like he didn't even get her name right at the time. Like he called her Luigi. Like her joining the guild was just like, I don't really mind. Like legitimately, I think at the start of the series, he didn't care too much about her. I mean, even look at when they like after this portion when they go to like Everlu's mansion, and he convinced her to go with him because they needed a blonde girl for the quest. They're kind of using her, and it's actually in a way a good thing because you then see how much like their relationship has grown, and like as characters they've come closer together. That's one thing I'll talk a little bit more about in the Black Clover one, just because like I think everybody can understand it getting the fairy tale from the start. But I think that with Black Clover, because it's Asta joining, and like he is the main character, and obviously Mishima does like pretty much they're essentially co-main characters. Like his male lead and his female lead are pretty much the co-main characters, but out of the two of them, the male lead always has a slight advantage when it comes to importance as the in the story. But um, the one thing that I think both series do really well is when it comes to the main cast and like the groups that they're in, they do like both Mishima and Tabata are excellent at making it so the characters really feel like they're like close, like they actually feel like they're pretty much family. It's not like because I don't want to take a jab at any other series, but a lot of the time you'll get like character interactions. They get along, but it feels more like, hey, this is our buddy from work. Somebody I know that I've worked with for a while. We get along. But when it comes to like Fairy Tail and Black Clover, like the Fairy Tail Guild and the Black Bulls really come off like they're a family. Like it's some ragtag group of guys that didn't have a lot and come together. They don't really require blood to be close. And I do really like that. So like when you have character interactions, it feels a lot more genuine than just like occasionally characters will talk to each other and maybe they'll get in some like goofy situation or something more funny. But I when it comes to Fairy Tail and Black Clover, it feels more like trouble at home, but not like serious. It's just you get in like family squabbles. If you got a sibling, you know what I mean. And sometimes you'll get in beefs, but they're not serious. But it can get kind of heated. But at the end of it, it's like yeah, whatever. It's just how it is. Then like you get still a lot of really good, more core aspects to the series, I'd say. You have like Makarov talking about like the freedom of magic and how they weren't going to let the council's views and rules tie them down. They need to be free and happy, and that's just how magic is. Because if they're always just kind of like worrying about all these different restrictions, their magic will never advance, so they'll never really grow as people. And they should follow the path they believe in. That's part of being like a member of Fairy Tail. And I think that was just a really nice thing to do at the start of the series. And not even really nice in the sense of like, oh yeah, it's cool that we get it as the reader. But I think it was very important at the start to give such a very core aspect of the guild and the series itself. And that's one of the things that Fairy Tail does excellently, is the way that they build the view of a lot of these characters, and how it's not really like the Fairy Tail Guild is inherently good, but they overall are squad first. Like they are the guild first. The only time that seems to not like be like guild first is really if a guild member is a threat to another, is a threat to more. I mean, look at like Ivan, Laxus for a while, the White Witch, when Laxus was talking to her and pretty much bring that up, is like, well, we'll protect you, but if if you don't tell us certain things that lead to danger for the rest of the guild, then there's an issue there. And there was still stuff with like the Vulcan. You got some funny interactions. You get a nice little battle between like Natsu and the Vulcan, and then obviously like the comedic parts with like Taurus and Lucy like showing more of her spells. There was still some nice just content driven stuff like early on, finding out. Actually, one of the things that always is weird to see just at the start of the series when you go back is early series Happy, just like when his wings are flapping instead of just floating because it's magic. I don't know, it's just one of those weird things. There's I'm sure there's a lot of series that you go back and look and think of early series design stuff and early series concepts and just how they're different than, even 100 chapters later, or especially the current portions of it. But you also got like you got a little bit more like, I don't want to say like graphic, but just some of like the parts, like when Maka was hurt and then Natsu like sears the wound shut with like his fire. It's like, I mean, there's still stuff like that. Like later, obviously, like Gray, like freezing his wounds and stuff regularly. But like, you just don't see a lot of Natsu carterizing wounds like throughout the series. I would like him to start doing that again. I think that would be pretty badass. Just in the middle of a fight, if he could start carterizing his own wounds. I don't know. I think that'd be really cool to see. And that was one of those early things that I was like, man, I wish that Hiroshima did that more often. But it's not a big deal that he doesn't. It's also really interesting that this portion, like early on, like this chapter, like ended, like the whole stuff with Mako ended on July 4th. And not because 4th of July. It's because it's close to July 7th. Obviously, July 7th is a very important day within the Fairy Tail world. And the fact that it just at the start of the series was very close to this specific date. I don't know. I just think that was a little intriguing going back. Just wondering, like, was there anything that maybe like Natsu reflecting on that day of just like thinking back on Igneel? Maybe that's the reason why Hiroshima had the date close, and maybe it was like one of those things where it's like the anniversary's coming up, Natsu's thinking about it a lot, and then the stuff with Mako and Romeo happens, so he ends up going out of his way to help because it just reminds him of himself. I don't know. Either way, really good like first two chapters. I think like I said, the content when it comes to like going after the Vulcan, it's like not a big deal. That's just like an early series, like little adventure they do. I think it's more important that the character driven stuff that you find out obviously later, like I said with Igneel, and then seeing like how Natsu reacts to like Lucy early on, how the guild is really kind of like set up from the start, and their views and the way that they interact with each other. I think is excellent. I do like that. Even like the first moment Natsu walks in the guild and just starting a brawl. Very character telling and very just showing what it's like to be in the guild. How rowdy and crazy they are. But other than that, though, good stuff. I've always really liked how the guild is presented and how like much of the characters actually feel genuine when it comes to interactions with each other, and especially they've known each other for years and just how regular it is. And like when you're like, oh yeah, that's just what they're like. It's not like, oh yeah, I know that guy. Sometimes he acts like this. It's like, no, I've known this person for years. This is just what they're like. I can probably tell you like what they're thinking right now, or at least make an estimated guess. Well, it's the difference between like kind of knowing somebody and then just being like understanding how they think from like long time experience and whatnot. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Further than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.